Alright, y'all, pull up a chair and grab a spoon, because we're fixing to talk about the question that starts more arguments than politics or football in New Orleans. But what about the gumbo? Down here, gumbo ain't just soup, it's a birthright. Every pot's a family feud in disguise. Whose roux is darker? Whose shrimps is fresher? And who had the nerve to put tomatoes in it? You'll fight, forgive, and then fight again, all over a bowl that smells like home. This ain't just a food tour, it's a pilgrimage through roux and rice, spice and soul. From the Fairgrounds to the French Quarter, we're hunting for the kind of gumbo that makes you forget your troubles and loosens your belt. Because in the Crescent City, gumbo ain't just what's for dinner, it's who we are. Alright, y'all, let me tell you about a little corner joint where time runs on white rice, butter, and beer. It's called Liuzza's by the track, and if you've never been, bless your heart, you've been missing one of the most New Orleans things that has ever happened. See, by the track ain't just a name, it's directions. This place sits a short stumble from the old Fairgrounds racetrack where horses still kick up dust and locals holler like their rent depends upon it, because in many times it really does. Back in 1996, a fella called Billy Gruber decided this neighborhood needed a spot where you could get a plate that tasted like your grandma cooked it after 3 beers in the second line. So he opened this joint, filled it with photos, laughter, and enough garlic butter to make the vampires over on St. Charles Avenue think twice. Now don't get me confused. There's another Liuzza's over on Bienville, but these two ain't kin. Same city, different branch of the family tree. Think of them like distant cousins who show up at the same reunion and both claim they invented gumbo. The building itself looks like it's been sitting there since Huey Long was still making those uptown folks holler.
Well, just like the old patent medicine drummer that used to come around our country. He had 2 bottles of medicine. He'd play a banjo and he'd sell 2 bottles of medicine. One of those bottles of medicine was called Hypopalorum. And another one of those bottles of medicine was called Lopapahara. Finally, somebody around there said, is there any difference in these medicines? Oh, he said, considerable. They're both good, but they're different. He said that Hypopalorum is made from the bark off the tree that we take from the top down. And that Lopapaharum's made from the bark that we take from the root up. And the only difference that I found between the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership was that one of them was skinning from the ankle up and the other from the ear down when I got to Congress.
With a bar that knows more secrets than a confessional. It's the kind of place where strangers nod at each other, beer glasses sweat in the heat, and somebody's always got a story that gets better after the third Abita. If you roll up today, you'll find it at 1518 North Lopez Street, just off Esplanade. Open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 8. Closed Sundays, unless the Saints are playing, in which case, hallelujah, it's church with gumbo. Liuzza's by the track ain't fancy, but it's the real deal. It's where the locals eat, laugh, and wait for the horses to run or the music to start. Either way, you'll leave with your belly full and you're so a little greasier in the best way possible. Now, Liuzza's gumbo ain't trying to win any beauty contest. It's not that thick swamp dark gravy your grandma stirred with a wooden spoon big enough to paddle a P-row. Nope, this one's a little thinner, a little more city than country, but Lord, don't let that fool you. The roux's dark enough to mean business. The shrimp are plump and fresh like they just clocked out of the Gulf. And that broth's got a slow burning spice that sneaks up on you like a cousin borrowing money. Now, take your first spoonful, and it's got all the right notes. Smoky, peppery, a touch of ochre to give it that Creole hug. The shrimp don't drown in it either. They hang in there firm and proud like they know they're the star of the show. And when you sop up that last bit with a hunk of French bread, you start thinking maybe you ought to move your mail to this bar stool and call it home. Sure, some folks say it's not thick enough, not dark enough, not their mama's recipe, but that's like complaining the Saints don't win every Sunday. It misses a point. This gumbo's not trying to impress the tourist or make it onto the Food Network. It's just doing what it's done for decades, feeding hungry people, tasting like New Orleans, and reminding you that sometimes the best meals come with a little sweat, a little spice, and a whole lot of soul. Now go on now, grab a cold beer, stir your spoon slow, and thank the good Lord for shrimp and roux and the kind of folks who still know how to make both right. Alright y'all, let me tell you a story about a little restaurant that fed a movement, a city, and even a Disney princess. Way back in 1939, over in New Orleans' Tremé neighborhood, a place so full of music the sidewalks got rhythm. Edgar Dooky Chase Sr. and his wife Emily opened a humble little stand. They sold poor boys, lottery tickets, and probably a good bit of gossip on the side. A few years later, they moved across the street and turned that stand into a restaurant that one day would be known all over the world as Dooky Chase's. Then came along Leah. Lord have mercy, Miss Leah Lane Chase was a force of nature from Madisonville, a woman who could turn a kitchen into a kingdom. She married Dooky Jr. in 1946, and together they took that neighborhood joint and made it the crown jewel of Creole cooking. By the 1950s, Dooky Chase's wasn't just a restaurant anymore, it was a safe haven where folks could eat fried chicken and plan the civil rights movement without looking over their shoulders. Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, and all kind of leaders sat upstairs with gumbo on the table and justice on their minds, while Leah worked her magic downstairs with a skillet in one hand and a vision in the other. Now, about that fried chicken. Listen, I swear the angels themselves would line up for a piece. Crispy, golden, not too greasy, and seasoned just right. You bite into it and that skin crackles like it's telling secrets. It's the kind of chicken that could bring peace to a family reunion, or start a fight at one if there's only one piece left. And if feeding half the city and half the movement wasn't enough, Leah Chase went and helped inspire a Disney princess. When the folks at Disney came to New Orleans researching The Princess and the Frog, they met Leah Chase, heard her stories, and said, "Now that's our girl." And sure enough, Princess Tiana, Disney's first black princess, was born from Leah's real-life story. A woman who started as a waitress, built her own restaurant, and cooked her dreams into being. Leah passed on in 2019, but her spirit's still there, hanging in the air with the smell of fried chicken and red beans. Her family keeps the doors open, her recipes alive, and that Tremé heartbeat strong. Because in New Orleans, we don't just eat, we celebrate. And if you ever find yourself near Orleans Avenue and you smell that fried chicken, you best go in. You're walking into history. Now listen here, if you're going to talk about gumbo in New Orleans, you can't skip Dooky Chase. That's like talking about the Saints without mentioning Drew Brees.
Let's finish strong. Let's smell greatness from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
It just ain't right. Walk through that front door on Orleans Avenue, and the smell alone will make you want to call your mama and apologize for every can of soup you ever pretended was gumbo. It's rich, dark, and smells like 100 years of love simmering in one pot. That roux, oh Lord, it's the color of a bayou sunset right before the mosquitoes come out. You can taste the patience in it, that slow, steady stir that separates the cooks from the amateurs. The gumbo at Dooky Chase's is Creole royalty. It don't come to show off, it comes to remind you who built this city. Leah Chase's recipe mixes chicken, sausage, and shrimp with a little bit of everything that ever made New Orleans proud. The broth's got that earthy depth from the roux, but then comes the kick of spice. Not too hot, just enough to wake up your tongue and make you want to sip a cold beer between bites. Every spoonful is a parade of flavors. Smoky sausage 1 second, sweet crab the next, and then a little whisper of green onion just to tie it all together. You know how some gumbo tastes like the chef dumped the spice rack in the pot and prayed for mercy? Not here. Dooky Chase's gumbo is measured. It has balance, the kind that came from a woman who had been running her kitchen longer than most of us have been alive. The texture's velvety, the rice perfectly cooked, and when that steam hits your nose, you just know somebody back there learned this recipe from their mama, and she learned it from hers. The best part? You can feel the history sitting in that bowl. This is the same gumbo Leah served to civil rights leaders while they planned how to change the world. It's the same gumbo Disney animators tasted when they were dreaming up Princess Tiana. It's gumbo with a story, gumbo with a backbone, gumbo that's been feeding hope and hunger since the 1940s. So if you go, do yourself a favor. Take it slow, sit down, sip that gumbo, and let it preach to you, because at Dooky Chase's, you ain't just eating soup, you're taking communion with the soul of New Orleans. Alright y'all, grab a napkin, cause this one's got powdered sugar and a spark of electricity in it. I'm talking about 311 Bourbon Street, a spot that's gone from lighting up the quarter to feeding it, humming first with Edison wires, and now with the sound of jazz and the smell of hot beignets. Long before tourists were spilling hurricanes and taking selfies with jazzmen, this little slice of Bourbon Street was just another narrow Creole lot, wedged between shops, saloons, and homes that smelled like chicory and cigars. But if you wandered by back then, you'd likely have seen a brick storefront with lace curtains upstairs and somebody selling something downstairs. Bread, buttons, or maybe a bit of gossip on the side. Then along came progress, wrapped in copper wires and bright ideas. And so, somewhere around the late 1800s, Mr. Thomas Edison decided New Orleans needed electric lighting. And he picked this very lot to help do it. Out went the old Creole house, and in came the hum of generators and the smell of ozone. For more than 60 years, the place buzzed as part of the city's electric grid. Folks called it Edison Place, and back then, that was about as modern as it got. Now, come the 1970s, NOPSI, that's New Orleans Public Service Inc., handed the old substation over to the city. The gates closed, the lights dimmed, and Bourbon Street just carried on without it, leaving Edison Place to collect pigeons and dust behind an iron fence. Now, fast forward to 1999, when somebody finally looked past the rust and said, "You know what this city needs? A park where the band never stops." So they cleaned it up, planted some palms, and reopened those gates. Out went the transformers, and in came the trombones. And that's how New Orleans Musical Legend Park was born. A little courtyard of brass and memory right in the beating heart of Bourbon. Life-size statues of Fats Domino, Pete Fountain, Al Hurd, Louis Prima, Alan Toussaint, Emma Thomas, and a few other local saints took their posts, standing proud and shiny as if they might start playing any minute. And right there, in that courtyard, under the palms and the sound of a trombone licking the air, sits Café Beignet, Bourbon Street. Now I've eaten my way across the city, from the powdered sugar blizzard at Café de Monde to the old school charm at Morning Call. But the beignets here, Lord help me, they got soul. They come out hot and golden, puff proud like they know they're sitting on hollowed ground. The powdered sugar falls on them like Mardi Gras snow while the band plays on. One bite, and you're done for. Crisp on the outside, soft and steamy in the middle. The kind of sweetness that sneaks up on you slow before hitting hard, like a drum solo that just won't quit. there long enough and you'll swear the bronze of Fat Domino smiles a little wider. And maybe the ghost of Edison himself leans back and tips his hat, proud to see his old power station still lighting folks up, just in a different way. Alright y'all, let's talk about that chicken and sausage gumbo at Café Beignet on Bourbon Street. Because it's the kind of bowl that smells like home, even if you ain't from around here. Now look, Café Beignet ain't a white tablecloth kind of joint. It's a place where powdered sugar drifts through the air like Mardi Gras confetti, jazz horns echo off the brick walls, and folks from half the world come wandering in looking for authentic New Orleans flavor. But when that chicken and sausage gumbo lands in front of you, steaming and dark as midnight, you'll know you found it. The first thing you notice is the smell. Smoky, peppery, and rich enough to make you forget what you were saying. The Roux got that deep, chocolatey color that tells you somebody took their time, stirring slow and steady like a drummer keeping rhythm. It's not watery or gloppy. It's thick enough to coat your spoon, but loose enough to dance around the bowl. The sausage here is the star of the show. Spicy, juicy, and smoky enough to make you think you're at a campfire somewhere out back. And the chicken falls apart easy, all tender and full of that slow simmered flavor that only comes from a pot that's been babbling half the afternoon. Every spoonful is a perfect bite. A little rice, a little meat, a little sass from the spice. You get that gentle cayenne burn on the back end that makes your nose twitch just right. That broth itself has that earthy, old soul taste, like somebody's grandmother passed that recipe down through generations of Sunday suppers. This ain't fancy gumbo. It ain't about microgreens, truffle oil, and none of that nonsense. It's everyday gumbo. That kind that warms your belly, sticks to your ribs, and makes you want to hug the cook. It's smoky, it's spicy, and it's got that little whisper of home cooking that sneaks up in you mid-bite. And maybe that's the secret. Café Beignet's gumbo don't try to impress you. It just sits there all humble-like and wins you over one spoonful at a time. So if you're wandering down bourbon with powdered sugar on your shirt and music in your ears, do yourself a favor. Grab a bowl, sit down, take a bite, because at Café Beignet, even the gumbo's got rhythm. And if you ain't tapping your foot by the second bite, you may want to check your pulse. Alright now, y'all, listen up. If you ever had a bowl of gumbo so good it made you want to slap the spoon out of your own hands, this is your moment. We're talking chicken and sausage, seafood, okra, dark roux, light roux, whatever side you're on, I want to hear it. Drop down to that comment section and tell me who in New Orleans serves up the real deal. Is it Dooky Chase's, Joey K's on Magazine? Maybe your Aunt Maybelline down in Gentilly got 'em all beat. Don't just whisper about it like you're talking in mass, say it with your chest. Now y'all keep it friendly, but don't be scared to stir the pot a little. Argue, debate, confess your gumbo sins. I know some of y'all use tomatoes, and we will pray for you. So go on, sound off in the comments, and let's see who's got the best New Orleans gumbo story, the strongest opinions, or the wildest Crescent City food tale. Winner gets bragging rights. Alright y'all, let me spin you a tale about one of the French Quarter's oldest watering holes, a place where oysters fly faster than gossip. and the beer's been cold longer than anybody's been alive to remember. I'm talking about Acme Oyster House, sitting right there at 724 Iberville Street, just a shuck away from Bourbon. But the story doesn't start there. No, you gotta roll the tape back to 1910 when the Acme Café first opened its doors at 117 Roux Street, right next to the Cosmopolitan Hotel. Back then it was more coffee and catfish than cocktails and charred grilled oysters. But it was already drawing in half the French Quarter with the smell of fresh Gulf seafood and the promise of good conversation. Now, as New Orleans stories go, this one's got fire. Literally. In 1924, the Acme Café went up in smoke faster than a drunk tourist dollar on Bourbon Street. But true to New Orleans fashion, they didn't pack it up or head for Houston. They just picked up their oyster knives, dusted off the ashes, and set up shop over on Iberville Street. That's when they changed the name to Acme Oyster House. And buddy, they've been slinging saltwater glory ever since. The place turned into the kind of joint where the walls sweat, the shuckers talk faster than auctioneers, and you can tell the tourists from the locals by how they handle their hot sauce. By the time World War II rolled around, Acme had become a French Quarter outpost for half the city's soldiers, sailors, and shipyard boys. You can walk in on any given night and see a bunch of uniforms, shoulder to shoulder, at the bar, downing one last Dixie beer before heading off to God knows where. Some of them swore Acme's Oysters was the last good meal they had before heading over to Europe or the Pacific. And I believe them. One bite of those briny beauties and you'll see heaven and the Gulf of Mexico all at once. They say troops would muster at the bar before deployment, which is just a fancy way of saying they'd gather there to fortify their courage with something a little stronger than coffee. After the war, Acme just kept rolling like the Mississippi River itself. It survived the good times, the lean times, and a few hurricanes for good measure. By the 1980s, though, the place had seen better days. There was a hand-painted sign behind the bar that read, "Waitress available, sometimes," and nobody was entirely sure if it was a joke or a cry for help. Then came along Mike Rodriguez in 1985, and he breathed life back into the old girl. He polished the counters, turned up the charm, and reminded everybody why Acme was the kind of joint worth waiting in line for. And it is. These days you can find Acme Oyster House in cities all across the Gulf Coast, Baton Rouge, Gulf Shores, even the Florida Panhandle. But that little brick front spot on Iberville, it's still the mothership. The oysters here are still cold, and if you lean in close enough to the bar, you might just hear the ghosts of some World War II veterans laughing with an oyster shucker over a round of beer and a dozen on the half shell. Acme ain't just a restaurant, it's New Orleans itself. Half history, half hangover, and all heart. The seafood gumbo at Acme Oyster House comes out steaming like it just rode off the bayou in a pirogue with a mission to baptize your taste buds. Now, I ain't talking about no watered-down, touristy, barely spiced stew. This here's the real deal, man. A roux so dark it could throw shade in a blackout. That velvety base clings to the shrimp, crab, and okra like it got secrets to keep. And buddy, every spoonful tastes like a Sunday afternoon in your grandma's kitchen if your grandma had a Cajun boyfriend who knew how to cook. The shrimp are plump, like they've been working out down in the Gulf. The crab is sweet enough to make you forgive your cousin for borrowing your truck again. And the whole thing seasoned with the kind of slow burning warmth that doesn't shout. It just sits back and lets you feel the glory. And Lord, don't forget the rice, y'all. Just enough to soak it all up without getting in the way. You'll be scraping that bowl like it's a prize at the bottom. Folks say it's rich, flavor-packed, and absolutely worth the wait. And I agree with them. And that's coming from people who know good gumbo like Baptists know potlucks. So, if you're at Acme on Iberville, forget the oysters for just 1 minute, if that's even humanly possible, and let that gumbo tell you a story. It ain't just a meal, it's a front porch tale with steam rising, a second line in your mouth, and every bite saying, "Welcome to New Orleans, y'all." let me tell y'all a little story about Joey K's. That big old corner joint sitting pretty on Magazine Street. Folks around here tell you that Joey K's ain't just a restaurant. It's a mood. It's a memory. And a place where red beans have been simmering longer than most marriages last. See, back in the day, somewhere between the disco years and the Reagan era,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
a mama opened a little spot just down the road called Tony's, serving up plates so good folks would slap their own hands to stop from licking them. When she passed, her boy, Joey, took it over and named it for his daughter, Joey K, because that's the kind of sentimental gumbo we cook down here. Eventually, it settled right there where it sits now, at 7th and Magazine, under the sign that simply says Joey K's, like it's been there forever, and maybe it has. By the late 1980s, when most of Magazine Street was looking a little rough around the edges, Cindy and Sam Fournette came along and decided to stir the pot again. They gave Joey K's a fresh coat of paint, a second wind, serving up fried catfish, shrimp etouffee, and red beans so thick your spoon could stand upright and salute. It didn't take long for the locals to start saying, if you're hungry on Magazine and you pass Joey K's, that's on you, man, not the restaurant. When Hurricane Katrina came rolling through and turned the city upside down, Joey K's was one of the first to light back up again, proof that you can't keep a good gumbo down. The windows steamed over, the beer got cold, and the smell of frying seafood told the neighborhood that New Orleans was still New Orleans, come hell or high water. These days, Joey K is like that dependable cousin who shows up for every crawfish boil and always brings something worth eating. The chalkboard's still full of daily specials. The plates are still big enough to make you unbutton your jeans in public, and the vibe, pure comfort. They'll tell you they've been there over 30 years, but the truth is, Joey K's feels timeless, as much a part of Magazine Street as the potholes, the porch swings, and the smell of fried oysters on a warm summer breeze. Now I don't know about you, but when I walk into Joey K's, I don't even bother flipping through the menu no more. Nope, my eyes go straight to that blackboard special. That's where the magic happens, you see. The thing about the blackboard is, it's where Joey K hides all the best secrets. The day's fresh catch, whatever coming out of that kitchen smelling too good to ignore, and the kind of meals that'll fill you up without cleaning out your wallet. It's what I like to call economical eating with taste still intact. And what did I order? The shrimp etouffee. And brother, let me tell you, that's not the kind of dish you rush through. That gravy is rich and buttery, with just enough heat to remind you that you're still in Louisiana. The shrimp are fat, pink, and perfectly tender, sitting in that sauce like they own this place. Every bite tasted like it'd been simmering slow since sunrise. And for the price, you couldn't beat it with a stick. So yeah, I may pretend I'm the adventurous type, but truth is, I am loyal to that blackboard. It's never done me wrong yet. Now listen here, friend. You can talk about gumbo all day long in this town, and believe me, we do. But when it comes to Joey K's seafood gumbo, that's a bowl worth preaching about.
Don't be lost when the time comes. For the day of the Lord cometh as a thief in the night. Yeah, man.
I've slurped my way through enough pots to know the difference between a roux that was rushed and one that was raised right. And Joey K's does it the way your grandmother would have done if she had all day and no patience for shortcuts. That roux, dark as a bayou at midnight, with a shine to it that says somebody's been whispering sweet nothings to that pot for a good long while. It's smoky and deep, with just the right hint of that roasted flour aroma that'll make your knees go weak before the spoon even hits your mouth. Then there's the seafood. Lord, they don't skimp here. You'll find shrimp, crab meat, and the occasional little surprise from the Gulf floating in there like Mardi Gras doubloons in a parade. Every bite's a reminder that you're eating from a city that lives and breathes off salt water and salt. The okra's tender but never slimy. The spices hit you like a slow second line. Starts easy, then builds up till you're grinning and reaching for your napkin. The rice does exactly what it's supposed to do. Soak up that gumbo gravy and hold it tight like it's afraid to let go. By the time you scrape the bottom of the bowl, you'll be sitting back in your chair thinking about how lucky you are to live in a world where something this good still exists on Magazine Street. Now, I've eaten gumbo in fancy joints and holes in the wall alike, but Joey K's seafood gumbo has that neighborhood honesty, the kind that tastes like it comes from somebody's kitchen instead of a kitchen line. It's spicy without showing off, rich without bragging, and smooth enough to make you order a second beer just so you can stretch out that moment. So yeah, Joey K's gumbo is one of my personal favorites. Every time I sit down with a bowl, I swear I can hear the Gulf whispering, "Welcome home, Bubba. Grab your spoon and stay a while." If you've been enjoying this video and want to help us keep exploring the Gulf Coast, consider joining Gulf Coastal Connections as a channel member. You get exclusive perks like our members-only podcast, custom emojis, and badges that show your support for this community. Just hit that join button below to check it out. It really helps us keep the stories rolling. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, it only takes a second, and it makes a world of difference. Hitting that little red button and the bell beside it means you'll never miss our latest adventures, ghost stories, and our Gulf Coastal history deep dives. And of course, smash that little button if you've had a good time. It helps more folks find these videos and keeps our little Gulf Coastal family growing. Most of all, drop a comment and join the conversation. I always meant this to be a two-way street, because if it's just me talking, well, that's not a conversation, that's a monologue. So tell me what you think, share your stories, and let's keep this thing going together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support.